I'll introduce myself. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining the workshop. My name is İlkay Demirda. I'm an impact and investment analyst. I'm based in Turkey. I'm Turkish. I have more than 24 years of experience. I've always worked in private equity funds and corporates all over my career. Just recently quit my corporate job and now advising impact funds globally. And today, we're going to be diving in. Actually, there you go. Serhat, welcome. There. I'll just dive into our discussion. The reason, as I said, I picked Serhat and Nicholas because this is a good case study for us for a climate tech investment. Serhat, maybe if you can introduce yourself briefly,
sure.
I move on to Nicholas, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Okay. So hello, everyone, again. My name is Serhat Çiçekoğlu. I'm the founder of Center Ventures, which is a multi-stage investment platform that focuses on two domains. One is human essentials, food, agriculture, and water, as we call it. And then the other one is industrial circular economy, where we focus on mobility, energy, particularly battery, and new materials. As Nick will tell you, we are very comfortable working with pre-seed stage startups that are at or close to MVP of their development. And we try to connect these B2B startups to corporate partners in our network to give them a chance to do pilots and POCs and to accelerate their commercial track. We are based in Chicago, although I'm connecting with you guys today from LA. We have an office in Istanbul, and we have an office in London that's dormant these days. But that's sort of like who we are and what we do. And final remark about us is that we made about 44 investments across 20 different countries. And I'll turn it over to Nick to introduce himself.
Yes, we're going to get into the details of your selection criteria. So Nicholas, welcome. You're based in Dubai and startup that Serhat already invested in. So tell us a bit about, your background as well.
Yes, so hello everyone. I'm Nicholas Jamal. I'm currently based in Lebanon, by the way. So I go to Dubai from now, like every now and then. So basically, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Docs. What we do at Docs is that we help battery manufacturers accelerate battery testing using machine learning. We're going to discuss that a little bit more throughout this panel as well. And as Serhat mentioned, he invested in us back in 2019. And it's been a great journey so far, to be honest. Also, we're going to discuss the challenges that we faced starting from the region with such an idea. So I hope that we will be able to add value to you today, especially that I guess now we have a great opportunity in our region to start changing things and to start doing more deep tech solutions here.
Great. Nicholas, I really want to hear from you. Why did you get into this business? What triggered you? Because I think starting from there would make more sense.
Yeah. So it all started as a university project, to be honest. Like back then, we were building an autonomous drone system with docking stations, and we wanted the drone to land on those docking stations, exchange its battery, and continue to its destination. And we faced so many problems with the batteries, even we lost our drone a couple of times. And this is when we were like, okay, if we're facing problems with our batteries, we're pretty sure that other people are facing the same issue. And this is where we started, if you want, working on batteries themselves. We initially started with an initial idea to monitor batteries in real-world situations and try to predict when they are going to fail. And then we kept on pivoting as we persisted throughout the years, and as we surpassed every obstacle, we were able to evolve our idea and make it more, let's say, closer to the market.
Great, thank you. Serhat, well, you're looking into a lot of deals globally, a lot of climate tech deals as well. Why did you pick Nicholas and DocText? What was your investment criteria when looking into the deal?
So first of all, it was a fit. So what Nick was working on in terms of the problem and the solution that he was thinking about was a fit to our area of focus as well. As I mentioned while I was introducing myself, energy storage battery is one of the areas that we work on. So as an investor, that's one thing that matters when you're making a selection, whether the entrepreneur is working on something that you actually focus as well. Entrepreneurs may have great ideas, but if it's not in our focus, we basically choose not to get involved. Second thing is, Nick was very honest about where he was with his team, where he was with his solution, and where he wanted to take the solution once he gets investment and what he wants to accomplish. And it was clear to us that he actually did a lot of hard work to get the startup thus far. And I don't just mean technical hard work. He did work really hard on recruiting people to become part of his journey and recruiting other, advisors and stakeholders to help him along the way. That is a good sign for us. And he accomplished all of that in an ecosystem that had very limited resources to offer. That was also very remarkable, how far he came along. Those are some of the things that we look in an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurial journey is extremely difficult. Those who may not have done it themselves would not understand what I just said. And I mean that sincerely, because it's one thing to invest in, it's one thing to do the work of an entrepreneur. And Nick had all the attributes of a entrepreneur that's set up for success one day. So we didn't hesitate investing in him even one bit.
Oops.
Now, that's the character of Nick. And then there is the financial expectations that we have. We believe that this solution is extremely important in the domain of battery world. And we believe that this is going to make a big success for everyone involved at one day.
Okay, you mentioned about a couple of attributes about Nicholas, but what else, do you look into founders in terms of, key characteristics?
Oh.
To the technical details, but what really attracts you in a founder?
So I think there are several things that you have to look into. Making an investment decision is a bit of science and a little bit of art as well. And the art comes a little bit when you are evaluating the entrepreneur. So I think relevance or relevant experience is one thing. A lot of times entrepreneurs can come up with great ideas. I come up with ideas every day. I pull up my socks, but it doesn't mean that I'm qualified to actually execute on them. So first thing is this a team that actually has the attributes of attributes that match the problem that they're working on. The second thing is, before I move forward, there's a camera in the back of the room. That's the camera that we see you guys in the room, and there's a lot of walking in front of that camera. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that, and perhaps minimize walking in front of that camera because it's distracting. Okay, so now it's zoomed out, and now we see the entire classroom. That's perfect.
Cool.
So we're behind you, just so you know. As we look at you. Yes, raising the hand. Saw you there. Okay, so the other important thing is the aspiration. Where does Nick want to take this startup? What's the North Star for him, and how are we aligned with that? I think intellectual honesty is extremely important. Understanding, what are the gaps that the startup has, whether it's human capital, whether it's technology milestones, being honest with us is very important. And then that means being honest with themselves as well. Because startups at pre-seed stage will have a lot of work to do. That's normal. But, you know, awareness of what they have to work on, how to prioritize them, that's important. One final, two final things. We try to observe how they treat others around them. And then my final criteria is that, do I want to work for Nick? Like, is this a character that I'd like to, you know, work with, however you define it? And, you know, this is important for, I think, to emphasize further, because investing in a startup or an entrepreneur is a long-time journey. And I want that to be a pleasant journey. And I don't mean not having difficulties, challenges in the business. They all will have challenges, but I don't want to work with difficult characters that may make the relationship straining. And we try to pick entrepreneurs that I one day would like to work for if I have to. So I hope that these are helpful, you know, list of attributes for the audience.
That's incredible. I will raise the same question to Nicholas, because I guess, you know, working with right characters is important for both ends. Did you have any other investors, or did you have to pick among them? What was your criteria for selecting investors if you had more than one option?
Yes, definitely. So number one, I don't want to reiterate what Serhat says, but it's a relationship business. So if we're not able to communicate and have fun along the journey with the investor, it wouldn't be someone that we would like to be in relationship with, let's say. There is also the part of relevance. So if the investor would just bring in money, it wouldn't help us that much. We want to get some advice. We want to get always some reality check. They need to be in the domain. We want their network, because at the end of the day, we're in the Middle East. So connecting to potential customers on our own would be difficult. So having investors that can directly connect us would be optimal. So to reduce it down is just being able to have good relationship. They are relevant, they are in our domain, and that they will be able to connect us. They have a solid network where they can connect us to potential customers and partners. These are the most important three for us.
That's great, thank you. Well, Serhat mentioned that you know, you're based in MENA, and there are actually restrictions about resources. I think less advantages compared to Cleantech startup based in US. So how was the journey for you? I mean, what was the advantages and disadvantages of being based in MENA?
Definitely. So the advantages, number one, is that you don't have competitors in the MENA region. So whenever you're working on batteries or anything like deep tech, it's not that we still don't have so many projects here in the region. So it will be impressive for investors. It can be impressive for your friends, so on and so forth. But the negative stuff, there are plenty of challenges. Let's say that as deep tech startups and clean tech startups in the region, we're facing, and we're gonna keep on facing, hopefully, until it becomes a mainstream, let's say, investment topic. So number one challenge is that comparing to other startups in the US, let's say, we don't have access to grants, especially at the initial stages of the startups. So whenever a startup, you have an idea in the States and you want to start working, let's say, on a novel technology, if you apply for grants, you can get grants up to $100,000 or even up to millions of dollars at the initial stages that will allow you to prove ahead of commercialization. We don't have access to that in our region. There are grants. I don't want to say there aren't grants, but usually those tickets are anywhere between 10 to 20K, which aren't enough to start, let's say, a proper scientific project. Number two, when we're talking about investors, there are investors in the region. However, there isn't much focus on clean tech technology. And whenever you approach investors in the region, because they lack the knowledge in the domain, they always ask for traction. So they want to see numbers to gain confidence in the startup that they want to be investing in. However, here, even if you are really straightforward with investors telling them, okay, we're pre-commercialization stage and we want your money in order for us to prove our technology and be able to sell, they wouldn't, like, it's always a chicken and egg problem in the region. Like, you want the money to prove your technology and to start selling, but the investors, they want you to show like you have sales before they invest. So this is where like we had to go outside of the MENA region to receive an investment, and this is where Sarhat and Santi came into play. So, and the process that we went through, this journey was amazing. And finally, human resources that understand technology. So today there isn't many people in our region that are getting yet into clean tech, into battery technology and understanding this technology. So this is another thing that we face some challenges in.
While we were waiting for you throughout the technical problems, we had actually a discussion here. The two young people who are getting into climate tech investors in the region, and they said they're struggling with it. And I understand there's a difference in terms of investors' backgrounds and understanding about climate tech in this region and what to expect from that. Sarhat, how do you see global investors approaching climate tech versus MENA investors, and how do you approach climate tech in general?
Okay, so let me start with the last one. We have been working in what is called climate tech today for almost 6 years, and we didn't try to be in climate tech. We didn't try to, come up with a name. We did choose these areas because of one, our historical experience, both myself and my partner, where we did spend our careers. I started my career in automotive industry in 1992 and spent decades in there. And that comes with material science expertise, that comes with, all spans of mobility expertise, and food and agriculture is another one. I come from agriculture, farmer families. That's my heritage. So that's a long way of saying, we are focused on things that we care about and had background and expertise to be able to do things efficiently. But today it's called climate tech, or it's part of climate tech umbrella. So we will continue to focus on this. Maybe 5-10 years later, it will be called something different. But these are things that matter to the future of humanity. That keeps us going every day. How do I see difference between MENA investors and investors in other ecosystems? I think Nick articulated it very eloquently. I probably can't do a better job than that, because he's the one who chases investors in the region. But I want to emphasize a few things that he said and maybe add one or two more things. First of all, in a region like that's what I would call an emerging ecosystem, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 countries, it's an emerging ecosystem. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of errors. And if you're expecting other investors from other regions to, help the ecosystem learn on your behalf, that's wrong. So MENA investors have to become more active. That's one thing. I don't think that they are active enough, contrary to what they may think. Being active means participating in earlier transactions more often. But one has to be fair. Risks are higher because of the things that Nick also mentioned earlier: access to talent, access to early stage grants, etc. So joining forces like, Angel Networks that's hosting us today is the right way to start. That way, individual investors may actually contribute smaller checks, but collectively they can create bigger checks. And I think collaboration among investor networks in and outside of the region is going to be very important. I would love to, work with angel networks and other investors as my co-investors when I make investments in the region. I would love to talk to them who are considering investing in startups like Dux and share our hypotheses and why we made investments there. So that's also a long way of saying they should branch out. They should network with their peers outside of their region. And that way they will create a global network of investors, which will be very important when their startups are looking for next level of funding, and local investors participating in a startup investment is going to be a stamp of approval and a token of validation of that startup. We always would love to see local investors, in the startup or participating in our investment round, or being investors before us. That's always a powerful sign for a startup. To see attraction, to attract actually further investment from investors outside of the region. So I see many investors, to summarize, overly cautious and maybe less networked compared to other area or other regions that I've seen. And this is a process. It takes time, but the more networked they are, the more involved they are investing in, the more successful they will be and the region will be. So I'm suggesting to be more active, I guess, in summary.
I'll give you some good news from this end. We had an earlier discussion, roundtable discussion, and actually then it's local networks to for cross-border deals, because we discussed, how important it is to really collaborate with different networks to get into really more deals and make them work. So there's commitment from New York Angel Investor Network, and all the rest really. So I think there will be something to understand our angels as well actively. Just for you. I'll come back to you. Starting from the okay, can you hear me, Nicola?
The voice is a little bit chopping. I don't know, Serhat, if that's the same.
You're breaking up a lot, İlkay. It may be the microphone. I'm not sure what it is, but we, hear every other word or so. Okay.
Well, there's not much I can do. I'll just speak up. If you don't hear me, just let me know. Nicholas, I'll come back to you. Cool. Well, can you just start from the beginning of the story and tell us about your pitching strategy? When did you approach investors, and how did you approach them? What was your strategy? And going onwards, what is the plan for it, and how are you attracting further investments?
Yes, great question. So initially, of course, we started by creating prototypes, MVPs, so on and so forth, trying to validate the product. But since we tried to approach angel investors, but again, we were at really early stages in Lebanon. Even at some point, whenever we were pitching the autonomous drone system, they laughed at us because it was so crazy back in 2015 to have such an idea in Lebanon. So we started first by applying to accelerators that are local and abroad. We got accepted back then in 2017 in Mighty Labs and Hardware.go in Berlin. This is where we got the chance to meet with the big corporates, Audi, Bosch, Siemens, and be able to validate further our product. But they didn't take any equity from us. So I really suggest for MENA startups to try to apply for such programs worldwide, because they will be exposed to many of these corporates that will help you validate your journey, and they don't take equity. Some programs, they cover your expenses to just go abroad and meet people and network. So this is one thing. But we initially started by applying to an accelerator program in Lebanon, UK Lebanon Tech Hub. They gave us a little bit of money, around 20K, and of course they took equity. This is where we started, if you want, being able to finalize our MVP, start approaching clients, so on and so forth. Now, after that, we saw that our Lebanese investors couldn't do much because they are not connected to the battery industry as global investors. So we had to start looking abroad in the States, in Europe, and it's all about really researching who are the investors that are investing in similar startups, who invested in our competitors. This is where you rely on Crunchbase, you rely on Owler, trying to see really who is the investor, what they are investing in, who is the portfolio, are they investing at our stage or not in our stage? And here, to be honest, it's all about quantity and less about the quality. You need to talk with a lot of people. And to be honest, we came across Sente after UK Lebanon Tech Hub in F6S. So we saw that they were recruiting for startups. And before applying, we reached out to Jared, so Serhat's co-founder, and we asked him, hey, we are working on this and that. What do you think about this? Do you think we will be fit? And we started our journey with Sente. Then after our journey with Sente, we kept on getting in touch with people. We grew our network. So it's Serhat, for example, kept on introducing us to investors. So as you go along with your journey and you connect to key people, your networks will start to exponentially grow. But at the initial stages, and these are the most crucial, I would say, phase. This is the most crucial phase. I really suggest to create lists, Excel lists of all the investors that invest in your particular sector, and connect with them on LinkedIn, send them messages, try to ask them questions, try to ask for advice and not for the money. Asking for advice, you would get much more, let's say, value at the earlier stages, and from there it's going to be an exponential process as you get people on board.
Well, it takes a lot of effort and investigation, and it really depends on the founder, really, and the determination really took you through the investment, and hopefully you're going to get even to better stages. Farhad, I'll come to you. What is the right stage for founders to reach investors? What do you see as common problems? Sometimes they're not really ready in terms of starting the discussion with investors, and they're too keen to really look for money, and they might lose the opportunity. What mistakes do you see, or what is the best strategy for founders to approach investors?
So there's one dirty secret to share first, for being maybe transparent. So most investors will look at investment opportunities that comes from investors that they already know or entrepreneurs that they already know. So my suggestion to entrepreneurs is that if you are interested in engaging with an investor, find someone who they invested already, or find someone who they invested with, and seek their help if you can, if you're connected to them. That's usually the best route to get attention of an investor. Second, I think it's hard to make a cold reach to work. It does, but it's a numbers game. You'll probably, if you reach 100, potential investors, we'll probably get response from a couple only, if any. But if you actually follow them and understand what they do, how they invest, and who they invested in the past, which is hard to do for a large number of investors, then you might be able to craft an email that makes it relevant for them while you're describing what you're working on and how you're going to, why they should be interested in working with you. So the way that you approach or articulate your startup to them in the context of what they do is very important. The third thing I think is to be visible. In other words, being active about sharing your development of your work, particularly in LinkedIn, like social media channels or Twitter or forums where industry leaders in your space follow startups is key. A lot of times startups like to be in the stealth mode, but stealth means not visible, so no one's going to know about you, and everyone will have hard time understanding what you've been working on. So you may still protect your secret sauce while being transparent about your work or what you're trying to solve and who your team is. And then that's the other thing. I think I want to make sure that it's clear when you are on, when you're reaching out, make sure that you're talking about your team as well. I usually don't like when entrepreneurs come across as individual saviors of an industry or a problem area. This is only going to work with team effort. Teams will succeed, not individuals. Individuals may have hobbies, teams have business. That's my personal view. So this is an important element. When someone reaches out to me, I like to see how they talk about their team as well. So those are my suggestions or tips, I guess, for who are considering reaching out investors for their startups. But I'm happy to answer any questions that they may have about it.
I'm sure we're going to have some questions for you, Sarat, but I'll make an addition to that those are very important tips that you shared with us. Sometimes, I receive decks from founders as well, and I see, they just come up with the standard email and they just send it through to anybody and everybody. As you say, your message needs to be really crystal sharp and very addressed to whoever you're sending it to. I mean, just look into the details of, how that investor is approaching the investment. What is their strategy? I mean, as you say, Sarat, it's very important to grab that attention from the investor, and you have really one chance to do that. So stop really sending typical emails to 100 investors. Rather, focus on every investor. Look into their investments, what they have done, co-investments. Like Sarat said, just approach the people they invested in. Try to come up with an angle. That would be my addition. So Nicola, what is the next step for you in terms of investment rounds?
Yeah. So to be honest, at this stage, we're fully focused on product development, validating our technology, and getting more traction. Because now we're entering into a recession, and some investors, they're still reluctant about investing, if you want, at commercialization stages of such startups, if you want, especially in battery tech now. So now we're just doubling down on trying to, if you want, get our product and our customers to a stage where we are able to stop getting, if you want, rejections from local investors and really bring them in without having to, by showing them more the upside of what we're going to be doing on docs versus letting them not see the risks that we can face. Because for now, the way the investors look at us, like we're based out of Lebanon, out of Middle East like countries, and we're trying to sell for Australian companies, for European companies, for US companies, so on and so forth. We already signed a letter of intent with an Australian company. We're currently collaborating with a leading university in the region to open up the first AI-powered battery testing lab. We have also a couple of POCs running in the United States. So we're just waiting to finalize those and be able to go to the investors in the region and tell them, okay, we have the traction that you need. We just need your money at this stage. And we started already contacting them 1 year ago. So we are updating them on our progress. We have a newsletter that we send on a quarterly basis telling them, okay, this is where we are at today. Those are our updates, so on and so forth. So it's a relationship, building the relationships as we go, if you want. And it's just not, we will be, I believe, raising our seed round of investment by Q1 next year. So hopefully everything will fall through.
All the best of luck with
Thank
that. Serhat, do you have any final comments to the startups here as recommendations?
I don't know if I can tell anything more to startups, but if there are any investors in the room, I would just like to suggest them to, be more active. If you're seriously interested in investing in startups in the long run, your best contribution to that would be start investing in the startups today. And it doesn't have to be large tickets. As I said earlier, coming together like the network here, you can actually invest in quite a large number of startups, and doing that with investors from other parts of the world through your network is going to accelerate the development of the MENA region ecosystems.
That's incredible. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay.
First, I would like to thank you for this amazing discussion. Having one from VCs and one from entrepreneurs really makes it a complete picture, and it's really near for us as an entrepreneur. I have actually two questions. I will be very quick. My first question, because I was studying, I was applying for my master in Europe, and I was studying in European. I was working in a European company as well. So when I was thinking about my startup and my idea, I learned from an European market and European customer, especially in the alternative protein. So, but I'm also have an endeavor to build something here in Egypt. So, what if my funding and my customer is in Europe, and I will incorporate in Europe? And I will be operating my business in Egypt, and this model which I was thinking about. This is my first question. My second question, one of the leading investors here in Egypt told me when I was asking about the access to finance, because investors only invest in things they used to invest in, they used to network with in. So when I was talking about climate tech alternative, it's not really something most of them invest. So when I was asking him about this, he told me that I'm as an investor, I get educated from you guys, from the startups. So as a master, Nicholas or Serhat could tell me, as a master in the investment, as an investor that you didn't really invest in this before, how can I persuade you and educate you as I was advised? That's two questions. So
let's get the answers and then I'll move on to you.
So Nick, do you want to take on one or two or both? And I'll follow you. What would you like to take on?
Yes, sure. So to answer the second question first, it's a matter of, again, establishing the relationship and gaining the trust as you go. Investors won't get or understand your technology right from the first meeting. It's going to take multiple times. The challenge here would be just attracting enough their interest to keep on having meetings with you and to learn more about their technology and to do their own research. Because if they don't do that, they won't get interested. They have to do something on their own to be able to invest. So if they don't do that, they wouldn't invest, to be honest. So here it's at the end of the day, it's like you need to show the carrot and the stick. So the carrot would be showing them the numbers and how big is the industry. It will help them like see, okay, so if I invest and I learn about this industry, I will make more money. And this is where they will start educating themselves more, and they will start having more meetings with you in order to get there. Now, regarding having if you want being able to have a team in Egypt and sell to Europe, so on and so forth. This is what we're doing basically in Lebanon, same thing. Definitely incorporating having a company in Europe will be much more beneficial. To be honest, based on our experience, whenever we mention that we're only a US company and we don't mention that we're in the MENA region, it's much more easier. And we are able to gain trust versus like telling them that we're in Lebanon. Unfortunately, this is the case. So just keep that in mind. And like definitely, we all want to give back to our countries. It's just really like maybe at the earlier levels, try not to double down on this, try to establish like your business elsewhere. And as you grow as a startup, you can rely more and start to bring back whatever you're reaping the rewards in other regions to your homeland. But this is my opinion. Serhat?
So I'll start with the first one. I don't believe in entrepreneurs leaving their ecosystems just because investors, ask them to. So establishing a business in your home country, validating it there if possible, and then exporting your innovation, not your team, to the other regions is at the core of our investment hypothesis as well. So we prefer actually entrepreneurs establish their businesses in their home country. But as Nick said, establishing an entity outside of your region always can be helpful commercially. And some investors support that, some don't. But I believe that could be very helpful commercially. With respect to, I think the second question was, can you please remind me, what was the second question about?
I was talking about the tips and tricks for educating investors that really don't have a background in climate.
Oh, yes, thank you. I appreciate it. So we are in the business of investing in frontier opportunities, right? So if you call yourself as a startup investor, you have to figure out a way to become comfortable with things that are emerging as next new thing. And next new thing is not always a new thing. Sometimes it's decades old subject that suddenly become interesting, right? AI being one example of such things. Or sometimes things that have been around 3 decades is called something new, and then suddenly it's a new thing. IoT is that. IoT has been around for almost 4 decades, and when it's called IoT, it became very popular. So I think it's very important to be comfortable with new things. Now, with that said, you asked a question also about investing in things that one is familiar with. If something that you're not familiar with is becoming popular investment opportunity, there are 2 things that you can do. One is, as Nick said, you can educate yourself. But the second thing is you can actually network with investors outside of your region, outside of your domain, and start investing with them and become familiar with the domain. And as you get familiar, you can start leading your own investments.
Great. I think we have one more question.
My question for Sarah. I'd like to ask about your portfolio. We know that the typical VC portfolio is very low distribution. So you can have that ratio that returns 150x, that you promise you invest 3x of the what's the distribution of the mix of your portfolio in Cleantech or Cleantech? hardware or product-based clean tech startups that is not like platform or SaaS or something like that. Second question, at what stage we can seek investment for hardware or product-based startups? Thank you.
So I understood the second question very clearly, but I did not understand the first one because we couldn't hear most of the words, technical issues. So can you shortly repeat the first one, please?
For your portfolio, as a typical VC that invests in
He's breaking up again. So let me try to repeat what I think I heard. Are you asking what percentage of our portfolio is hardware or hard problems or
portfolio in Cleantech? What is cheap returns for the bonus you have for your LPs, 3x for the fund? Yeah. You understand?
Okay, I'll try to summarize what I hear from you.
You're breaking up as well, Ilkay. I can't hear you.
Okay, the question is, what is your text returns?
Nicholas, can you hear them?
I guess the return on investment from your investments in the Cleantech.
Oh, okay. That's a very private question. So I don't think that I'd like to talk about that. But I think there is another data that you can use to understand where things are going, is that we keep on investing in. That means there are good investment opportunities. Otherwise, we wouldn't continue to invest in. So that I'm happy to share in a public forum like this. This is an area where investments will garner good returns for the next decade or two. Now, there is a perception about climate tech being low return because of the first climate tech era as it's perceived. So what? When was the time where investors got something right and became wildly successful the first time that they invested in? So just because the first era didn't do well doesn't mean that we can't do well now. And here's the other thing. We have to be successful. So if we don't invest in climate tech, who do you think that is going to invest in climate tech? Do you think that we can outsource that problem to others to solve? No, it's entrepreneurs, it's investors that we have to take the first step. We are the frontier investors, not the public markets, not the real estate market. It's us who are going to, pave the way. So returns will come. We just have to be patient about that. And I think, as Ilkay mentioned about during her opening remarks, there's tremendous amount of follow-on capital, large stage capital coming into this space. That is going to make early stage investors returns higher than it was a decade ago. So I'm very encouraged about investing in this space. And by the way, clean tech is hard, and hard is good. Hard problems return much larger returns to the investors for their investments. That always has been the case. I think one thing that you will recognize is that media loves to write a lot about B2C stuff and not much about B2B stuff. Climate tech is B2B, and it takes a different approach to think about it. So I highly encourage everyone to continue thinking about and acting on investing in the space.
Well, I would like to thank you both. We're just
Welcome.
It was a great discussion, thank you. And I think, in the next tech, the time is changing, and urgency of solving the climate problems is really here. So we really need to have to invest into this. So thank you for leading the space.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity, and we'll be delighted to connect anyone who wants to talk more about investing in this space. And I'm sure Nick shares the same thoughts. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before I lose you, Serhat, I think we can have one photo. I'll just stand here and maybe my friend can take off. It's going to be quite strange, with the screen. Let's have a photo. This is the beauty of a virtual environment. We're connected all over the world. Thank you. And
Thanks for having us again. Have a great event. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Well, thank you for bearing with the technical problems. Well, I had some slides, but you can connect me through any social media. I'm quite active on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, whichever you want. I mean, I'm advising both funds. I'm working with Serhat, actually. I'm helping them with their fundraising. So just connect me. I'm working with startups as well. So any questions, just reach out.